I think he's not a good billionaire. Okay, there's no such thing. But him and Bill Gates, I think, are looking at the situation and going, dog, we're fucking billionaires. We already own the government. Why are you fucking up the bag by taking an active role in the government? Okay. When everybody spams the same fucking link, dude. You did it, Reddit. I'm watching it.
Throat. Like every morning I wake up happier than the day before because all of these forms of repression that I just had gotten used to.
Hallelujah.
Disappeared so far up their own woke asses. If those people stay in control, I think that the Republicans could have an electoral majority as far as the eye can see.
It's really the dawn of a new crypto era.
The future is gonna be amazing!
More than any other sector, the tech industry invested in this election. Crypto accounts for more than half the corporate spend, with no other industry coming close. It's not unusual for...
This shit is making numbers, doing numbers in blue sky. Yo, this shit's popping on blue sky, dude.
...industry to use their money to buy influence. And at a superficial glance...
There was a first-time chatter and offline, like first thing in the morning, mad as f that you weren't waking up early to watch it for them. All right, let's watch.
That's all the tech VC world wants. They want lower taxes and friendly regulation. They want the head of the Federal Trade Commission out. They want the tech industry to be responsive to the Future Commodities Trading Commission, not the Securities Exchange Commission. Except that's not all they want. Behind the money and influence flowing into the Trump campaign are a set of bizarre beliefs and a dark agenda.
I'm not just MAGA. I'm dark, gothic MAGA.
You see, the tech bros of Silicon Valley believe that the American empire is on the verge of collapse. Silicon Valley wants to speed this up, but use the coming administration to create safe landing zones for them and their cash, where they can also run their own governments. And what is so annoying about this is it makes me sound crazy. It makes me sound like a conspiracy theorist. But I'm talking about crazy people. I am talking about the guy who wants to colonize Mars. I am talking about the guy who said he gave up on democracy in 2009. These tech bros justify their point of view because they believe that that's the natural place in society.
I agree with everything that she's said so far. Yes. Our tech feudal overlords unironically believe that they are God ordained to be in that position. Maybe some of them masquerade under the guise of meritocracy, but the attitude is almost identical. Are we watching the same video every day? What? I haven't watched this yet. Shut the f up, chatter. Every single person is literally demanding I watch this video.
The courageous geniuses on the new frontier. I'm not speculating. These men say it. They say it on podcasts and at conferences and in interviews and in blog posts. Some are quiet, some are very, very loud, but they all are on board.
And I think that if we want to increase freedom, we want to increase the number of countries.
If you want to replace the elite that you have today.
God, I can't get over how much of a head this fucker is, bro. Like, how are you walking around looking like that? And then you want to dominate American society and perhaps the globe? Look at this. Look at this goddamn egg, dude. That's Mark Andreessen, for those of you who don't know.
Hey, what you need to do is you need to have a better elite. And there's a way to do this. It's been done before.
We get kind of money and property right, and that it's a strong foundation for building, kind of a world that we all want to live in. We're seeing, some, breakdown of those in the real world in the United States lately.
I'm definitely very interested in ways that you can sort of tokenize real estate and
I think one of the funniest parts about Mark Andreessen's anger and resentment, and I've listened to, unfortunately, a lot of interviews of his, is the fact that what radicalized him was that he didn't feel like the peasants gave him enough respect. He's like, back in the day, you used to be rich, you used to be an oil baron, and you do a little bit of philanthropy, and the people would constantly tell you that you're awesome. But then something changed. That was a part of the social contract. But then something changed. Now everybody thinks the rich are bad, the rich are bad, the rich are evil. That's it. That's why he's mad. Because people weren't enough. That's not Mark. What do you mean? No, this other bald, clearly with a more normal looking dome, is not Mark Andreessen. Said those. That's Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase. Bro, this is a separate bald. I'm talking about Mark.
Actual physical land to create better forms of society and governance. I do think America is in slow decline right now. I would like us to all in crypto think about how we actually go create physical places in the world to preserve freedom over the long term. I think that's ultimately crypto's destiny.
the people of Mars will be more enlightened and will not fight amongst each other too much.
It's basically tech libertarian futurism, an ideology around technology, and including technology enhancing human freedom.
I am trying to fix government in the U.S. The point was like, let's have a new government.
Where do we sort of go from the wisdom of crowds to the madness of crowds? We're far too far on the side that you can describe as collectivist, centralized, Borg-like, conformist, and also generally just simply incorrect.
I think that what Elon's doing is showing a path to fighting back. The left-wing elite's going to be kicking and screaming the whole way.
Mark Cuban, one of the more normal billionaires, had this to say about this particular group of men that I'm talking about.
What's happened in Silicon Valley is insane.
Right.
Right. It's not so much a support thing, it's more like a takeover thing, trying to put themselves in a position to have as much control as possible. They want Trump to be the CEO of the United States of America.
I think he's not a good billionaire. Okay, there's no such thing. But him and Bill Gates, I think, are looking at the situation and going, dog, we're fucking billionaires. We already own the government. Why are you fucking up the bag by taking an active role in the government? Okay, that's the frustration, because like Bill Gates and Mark Cuban both have been very critical of the right-wing tech bro, the openly right-wing tech bro attitude that is fairly present in Silicon Valley now. And they look at that and they're like, dude, when you're a billionaire, you're supposed to be fucking silent, you know? You're supposed to be making these moves in silence. You're not supposed to actively assume the reins. You're not supposed to openly say you're, you know, moving the government in this direction, especially because nobody likes the government. So you are associating yourself with a negative entity for no reason, when you could make the government keep doing your bidding just quietly behind the scenes. And I think it's narcissism. I don't think it's like some great, brilliant capture of power. I think it is pure narcissism. These guys don't simply want to control the government, which they already do. They want to get credit for it. They want to be praised for it. They want to be loved. They want to be worshipped. What? Please do not ridicule people simply on how they look and how you perceive their looks. HasanAbi, Trump behaves like that, to be honest. Yeah, that's the biggest negative about Donald Trump, is that he fat shames people. You're right. And not that he's a fucking racist, rapist. I know. Shut the up, chatter. I'm going to call billionaire Mark Andreessen an egghead because his cranial outline is that of an egg. Okay?
And they want to be the board of directors that makes him listen to them.
Now, this hypothetical board includes a couple of power players that I think are worth
look
keeping
up here,
an eye
come
on.
on!
Namely,
come on! I mean, come on! Come on! If I did not openly joke about this man's dome, I would be doing you a disservice, because it's such an elephant in the room that if I don't address it, people are going to be like, why is this guy not addressing the most obvious thing that we are literally looking at right now? Come on. He looks like a cartoon character. Like, heads are not supposed to look like that. People will start suspecting me of being paid opposition for not openly saying the truth that everyone can see. Here at the HasanAbi broadcast, I do not shelter you from the truth. I tell you openly what my eyes are seeing. Okay? That's why Mark Andreessen and his net worth is increased, because egg prices have shot up spectacularly under the Trump administration. And therefore, the top egg is also a more valuable egg now.
Peter Thiel,
Humpty fucking Dumpty,
Elon Musk, Brian Armstrong, Mark Andreessen, Ben Horowitz, and David Sachs. In this video, I'm
putting him next to two other bald guys who have, in comparison, more human-like shapes in their skulls, perhaps makes this even worse for him. Like, they could have spliced Elon Musk here and maybe David Sachs. They could have separated the balds. But putting all the balls together makes this infinitely worse for Mark Andreessen. Ironic enough, because Ben Horowitz is his business partner. Okay, so he's constantly surrounded by people that have a normal bald look, which makes his head look even funnier. It is crazy. Imagine a lifetime of people constantly thinking about how your head is egg-shaped, especially because your business partner is also bald and has a normal-looking head in comparison. He looks like one of those conehead babies, but didn't come out of it. Yeah. If you shot Mark out of a cannon, he would fly like a bullet. Okay? He would literally, he has the perfect bullet-like shape. Yes, he is ballistically sound, perfectly aerodynamic. He would pierce through any object that you shot him at. It's crazy. Perhaps this is the reason why he blocked me on Twitter many years ago.
In this video, I'm going to try and lay out what I think these people are doing behind the scenes. If you do want to dive further into this topic, I recommend looking at the work of Gildaran. I have linked his blog below. This is his beat, and he's amazing at it. This man is named Balaji Srinivasan. Like Beyonce, he tends to only go by his first name. Balaji is highly involved in the tech scene, and while not a billionaire himself, he is friends with a lot of them. He's a former partner of Andreessen Horowitz. He is the former CTO of Brian Armstrong's Coinbase. Thiel actually recommended Balaji to be the head of the FDA during the first Trump administration. Balaji wrote a book. It's called The Network State: How to Start Your Own Country. In that book, he talks about how to break nation states apart into smaller territories, which can then be run like corporations.
What I mean by Silicon Valley's ultimate exit. It basically means build an opt-in society, ultimately outside the US, run by technology. And this is actually where the Valley is going.
You see, like many in the industry, he is interested in disrupting the current idea of nationhood through the creation of a network of sovereign, tech-run territories protected by military-grade security. Balaji wasn't the first person to come up with this idea, not even in the tech scene, but he was the first person to present it in a more palatable way. The idea...
Bro, these guys read one book, okay? They read one Ayn Rand book, and just, it shaped their whole lives permanently. Okay? It's so sad. Read a second book, man. Please. Please read a second fucking book. Every decade, there is a new version of this exact same project. Every decade, they're like, we are very wealthy. Why are we wealthy? Because we deserve it, because we've worked harder and smarter than anybody else. They believe in meritocracy, the myth of meritocracy, okay? And they think, oh, why don't we capture all of this wealth and not be restricted by pesky government regulation? That's it.
It actually comes from someone named Curtis Yarvin.
I
In
hate
Patchwork,
this guy
Yarvin
too.
wrote, the basic idea of patchwork is that as the crappy governments we inherited from history are smashed, they should be replaced by a global spiderweb of tens, even hundreds of thousands of sovereign and independent mini-countries, each governed by its own joint stock corporation, without regard to the residents' opinions. Patchwork is a reboot of the current system in order to install a new operating system. Yes, Yarvin is a software developer with a company named Urbit, invested in by Peter Thiel. He refers to these small territories as patches, but he's flexible about how they might run, maybe like a corporate urban space or a city-state like Athens. These corporate dictatorships would use all-seeing surveillance to protect their citizens and enforce their laws. There would be biometric IDs. If you're poor, you will have to move to another patch. Or the poor could be ground up and used as biodiesel, or locked into a virtual reality prison. Now, Yarvin said he was joking about the biodiesel thing, but not about the prison thing. So I'm not sure if he was joking about the biodiesel, which gives us an understanding of why Balaji had to come up with a more appealing way to present this.
It's pretty crazy because I do often joke about how the rich want to melt the poor for, for fuel. And here he is, one of Peter Thiel's like biggest influences, just a literal grotesque, advocating for it as a haha joke.
This idea. Balaji has less about dictatorship and mass incarceration and more about freedom and opportunity. A lot of people in the industry acknowledge that Balaji's ideas are a little out there.
This is Balaji.
Yeah, this is Balaji.
And I would dismiss them too if those same people weren't actively funding them. Millions of dollars are being funneled into these projects as we speak. This is the website for Praxis, a network state funded by Peter Thiel.
What's really funny is that these guys end up, I think, huffing their own farts a little too much. One, they personally have an inflated sense of self-worth and genuinely think that they're fucking brilliant and not like unimaginably lucky being in the right place in the right time. Sure, I'm sure that they're like somewhat intelligent too, but overall, to get to the level that they got to, they have to be profoundly fortunate. But these guys don't think that. They think meritocracy is real. So they actually arrived at this because it was God ordained. Okay? The other myth that they, myth making that they have ended up believing is the notion that like the American government is simply a restrictor of innovation and not a major proponent of innovation, and not unimaginably its contributions are not unimaginably important. Like they legitimately believe that if they were to build this like small state for themselves, that they would actually be able to successfully thrive in said small state, and that it wouldn't get fucking destroyed either due to the, you know, actual issues and their inability to address them, like with a welfare state or whatever, the inherent contradictions that exist within capitalism, or they would get dominated by another competent nation state, like instantly. It is hilarious. Dude, a little micronation like this run by a bunch of autistic nerds who think that they're brilliant would get dominated by like not even China, okay? Because everyone immediately thinks, oh, they get dominated by China. They get dominated by like Somalia, okay? A country that is far smaller, or rather far poorer than the United States of America. I'm not even saying Mexico. I'm saying like a cartel in Mexico could overtake this. They do more administrative governmental duties in the fucking areas that they have cultivated as fiefdoms than these fucking dipshits do. They don't realize that they would probably be overtaken by one of the shittier cartels, not even like one of the big ones, in perhaps a week. They are so stupid.
Mark Andreessen, Balaji, and Sam Altman. Through their shared capital fund, Pronomus, which is dedicated to funding the creation of network cities. The website for Praxis says, as local communities dissolve and nation-states stumble, network states will...
Hamas does more administrative work? Of course they do. The Taliban does more administrative work because they are a government. These people only suckle on the teat of government and think that that everything the government does is bad because they're fucking stupid, okay? They're stupid. They're dumb. They literally believe the lies that they tell people, which probably makes them a more competent liar, especially if you believe your own lies. Then yeah, you'll be a better liar overall. But they're stupid at the end of the day for believing in this fucking lie. You think the government creates bureaucracy because it's a, you know, nanny state communist propaganda tool or something? No, they have to. You fucking idiot. It's so annoying that these guys would just be like, nah, you don't understand, dude. If left to my own devices, I would create this incredible libertarian utopia. Okay, who's going to build the fucking roads for commerce, dumbass? I know your ass ain't building it. You're an agoraphobic autist. How are you going to build the fucking roads? You think you're going to be able to enslave people to do it? No, you're not. It's not happening. Yeah, they'll just keep saying you have violated the non-aggression principle.
The next global superpower will be a network state. The next America will be on-chain. The stated goal of Praxis is to build a corporate government with a global footprint. It will have territories all over the world. Crypto will be its currency. The modern global system, once the greatest power in the history of man, has become a brittle, jerry-rigged contraption incapable of carrying out the most basic functions. As these governing institutions continue to degrade, people will come to realize that no one is truly on their side. As nation-states falter, network states become inevitable. I should mention that Pronomus Capital is funding the creation of...
If you don't believe in meritocracy, then you have to admit your success in Twitch is all luck and no skill. I disagree with you on a lot of things, but even I don't believe that about you. If you think luck did not play a ginormous factor in me being born into a family, having an uncle that was already in, you know, media to a certain degree, in a small business, but still, in a startup, but still, regardless... If you think that that does not play a formative role in where I arrived at, I don't know what to tell you. Of course luck played a major factor. Are you kidding me? Do you know how many competent, charismatic, brilliant fucking people start Twitch channels? How many of them make it? How many of them get to this level? Of course luck plays a major role. That is my point. I say this all the time about myself. Now, having said that, you can have all of the affluent beginnings in the world and still fuck it up, and plenty do. Okay, plenty do. So yes, hard work still plays a major role. You've said before you paved it on your own. Oh my God, dude. Oh my God. In a complex interview, you actually got clip-chimped by a dude who has never stopped being jealous. Why would I say this right now if I genuinely believe like I did everything on my own with no help from anybody whatsoever? and that luck was not a significant factor. Why wouldn't I just keep saying I paved it on my own over and over again, you dumb fuck? You're arguing with what I'm saying right now. You're arguing with what I'm saying right now because of your own personal misunderstanding, okay? When this is something that I have repeated a million times over. He is saying it now too. That's why people are bringing it up. I know. Ethan is so fucking invested in trying to cry about how I'm responsible for him stubbing his toe all the way to like losing partnerships and stuff like that, even though I've played zero role in this and would love to wash my hands of all of this in its entirety, because I think it's a sad state of affairs for him, more so than it is for me, that he has decided to just go down the fucking, he's decided to go down the Destiny pipeline so hard that he's rehashing old shit that he used to cry about. Destiny used to. It is crazy. And yes, you even give credit to Divorcelli for your career, like it's insane. Yes, in the beginning, I did. Except he is such a monstrous person that, yeah, it got embarrassing to admit after a while. But that's, again, his own fault. Wait, what? It was really sad, backed up by an Ethan lie about Dr. Pepper being BDS? Yeah. It's so sad, man. Please, stop trying to drag me into this shit, okay? I wish Ethan Klein all of the peace and prosperity in the world. I really do. I wish this upon all of the people that are naysayers, that say I'm a bad person, I'm the biggest evil villain of all time, okay? Because I feel like if they were to become, you know, happier people, they probably would be, you know, not up my ass all the fucking time. You need to talk about it? What's wrong, bro? Does it feel like I need to talk about it? So pressed. Yeah, you're right. It's really getting to me. Yes. If you keep repeating it in the chat over and over again, maybe you can clip it and then put it on Reddit and be like, oh man, we really got him. Do I seem pressed? I don't understand. Anyway, getting back to this video.
Other network states, many of which are further along than Praxis. Some examples are Prospera in Honduras, Afropolitan, Itana, and small farm cities in Africa, Metropolis in Palau, and I think Young Drunk City is planned for South Asia. On Pronomis' website, they claim, decades of research on economic development has shown that the primary determinant of prosperity is the quality.
The only reason you speak about this stuff is because people bring it up, acting as you bring it up on your own. I know, people bring it up, and it's not even fans. Like, people bring it up, and then I reply to it, and then other dumbasses in my community would go, no, you do actually sound kind of pressed. Like, it's an entirely one-sided beef, okay? And if you keep escalating it because you can't comprehend anything other than drama online, then I don't know what to tell you, you know? Anyway, let's get back to these fucking tech feudal overlords. I can't believe a conversation about the myth of meritocracy, and something that I repeat regularly in terms of the unimaginable privilege that I have had and the unimaginable luck that I have had to be able to get to this point, led to an entirely stupid sidestep here. Okay. I'm going to start banning people that also are just saying, just get to commentating, lol, because you're being almost as annoying as the dumbass gray names that come in here specifically to chirp.
Of a country's laws and the integrity of its courts, administrators, and other legal institutions. When institutions are outmoded, corrupted, or failing, the result is untold human suffering. Yet upgrading national institutions is notoriously difficult. Our solution? Build the cities of tomorrow. Right now, they are creating cloud communities, virtual nations. Once they have access to land, they will get their citizens to migrate to that city. Have a look at the pledge that you sign when you join Praxis, which you can join right now, by the way. Pronomis isn't actually Peter Thiel's first flirtation with exiting democracy either. In 2009, he funded the Seasteading Institute.
I want to say some things on why I think seasteading is not just possible or desirable, but why it is actually necessary.
The Seasteading Institute envisioned building these floating cities in the ocean outside of government's jurisdiction where billionaires could live and create as they saw fit. This idea kind of ran out of steam because nobody wants to live at sea, especially not billionaires, which means they need land. But how do we get from a nation state to a network state?
And this is actually related to a fundamental concept in political science, the concept of voice versus exit. If a company or a country is in decline, you can try voice or you can try exit. Voice is basically changing the system from within, whereas exit is leaving to create a new system, a new startup, or to join a competitor sometimes.
There's another way that Balaji also talks about how this could possibly happen. He calls it tech Zionism.
You know, what I'm really calling for is something like tech Zionism, a movement supported by a global network to take back territory in the city, floor by floor, street by street, block by block.
It's literally, it is BioShock. If you didn't understand the lessons of BioShock.
Policeman by policeman, you have a foothold of private property, and you have membership in private property. You also issue t-shirts. The tribal lens is like a virtual reality filter. Every single thing can be tagged as gray or blue in the city. I mean, like literally. So gray is the future, red is the past, blue is the present. So blue stands against both the past and the future. They're against both the self-driving cars, and they don't want to go back to the 50s. They prefer OnlyFans, Me Too, BLM, Ukraine. The hard part is to take control of the streets. How can you fence off a street and make clear that it's under gray control? Take total control of your neighborhood, push out all blues, tell them they're as unwelcome as just as blues ethnically cleanse me out of San Francisco. Like, push out all blues, who has lost some territory in the cloud. They still control the land. Once gray starts taking back control of the land, that they're really going to howl. As they start losing, they're going to whistle for backup from California and eventually DC. Okay, they're going to try to get executive orders or things like that, which means you're going to need to have sympathizers at the level of California and DC who will side with you enough to block those actions, number one. And or number two, you actually get to the level of a sanctuary city and you say, I dare you.
Keep in mind, actions like this are already being attempted in places like Solano County, where they're trying to build California forever, or the actions that Gary Tan is taking in San Francisco. But the people in these areas are putting up a fight, and it's costly, and it's slowing everything down. Fortunately, Trump is talking about something called freedom cities, the creation of new cities on federal land.
Almost 1/3 of the landmass of the United States is owned by the federal government, with just a very, very small portion of that land, just a fraction, 1/2 of 1%. Would you believe that? We should hold a contest to charter up to 10 new cities and award them to the best proposals for development. These freedom cities will reopen the frontier, reignite American imagination.
I wonder where he got that idea. This is where J.D. Vance comes in. J.D. Vance is seen as a mild-mannered, well-spoken success story, a populist who was born into tough circumstances in Appalachia, but managed to pull himself up by his bootstraps, graduate from Yale Law, become a best-selling author, become a tech venture capitalist, only to give all of that up for public service.
Yeah, he just brown-nosed his way up to the top, sucking up to liberals and then most importantly, Peter Thiel.
When he was officially tapped on the shoulder for
giving Peter Thiel a massive foothold into the Trump administration,
the vice presidential nomination, many of his former colleagues celebrated. Elon Musk, David Sachs, Mark Andreessen, and Balaji all tweeted their congratulations. After all, it was a strange choice for Donald Trump, especially compared to Mike Pence. But when it comes to J.D. Vance, a lot of people make strange choices. Peter Thiel invested $15 million in his campaign to become senator, the largest single donation to a Senate campaign in history. J.D. Vance is an extension of Peter Thiel. That doesn't mean that he is beholden to him, but it does mean that Peter Thiel has had such a huge influence on J.D. Vance's life that you cannot understand him without first understanding who Peter Thiel is.
I'm Peter Thiel. I build companies and I support people who are building new things.
I would say Peter Thiel is the most honest representation of what Silicon Valley is today. Worth up to $9 billion, extremely well connected. He started off as a member of the PayPal mafia, the guys who invented PayPal, and they originally intended for that to be a libertarian alternative to the US dollar. When it wasn't that and they sold out, he used the money that he made from PayPal to invest in other companies, including being the first outside investor in Facebook. And today he has invested in a huge portion of the tech industry, including companies like Sam Altman's OpenAI. He's also a big deal in the tech defense sector. He owns Palantir, which is a surveillance software that is basically omnipresent in the US government.
Did you guys see that Palantir guy with the kooky hair be like, we kill people all around the world. We're murderers. We love doing murder on a quarterly earnings meeting. It was insane.
It's used by the CIA, FBI, ICE, Homeland Security, various police forces. Palantir is also used by private companies such as Cambridge Analytica. In 2009...
Alex, as always, we have a lot of individual investors on the line. Is there anything you'd like to say before we end the call?
This is what he said to his retail shareholders.
We're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am. Let's not talk to analysts about the burden of being right. Our burdens of investing in ontology, our burdens of actually looking at the math, the burden of reading what the Rule of 40 is, the burden of being honest about what an enterprise software company is, or the burden of explaining to your friends that you're really happy. Maybe we should just stop talking about it. I'm very happy to have you along for the journey, and you are partners for us. Every Palantirian, we are crushing it. Everyone else who's listening, We are dedicating our company. We have dedicated our company to the service of the West and the United States of America, and we're super proud of the role we play, especially in places we can't talk about. And we love our success in the U.S. and globally. Also, you know, we are doing in the United Kingdom and many other places. Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them. And we hope you're in favor of that. We hope you're enjoying being a partner, and we're really happy and very, very focused on what we're doing. Thank you for your time.
The stock went up 23% after this call, by the way. Nice. It's an interesting change in attitude. That's what this marks. An attitude shift, a noticeable attitude shift. Back in the day, these guys used to at least hide. Like Google had a do no evil policy, right? They used to hide the more nefarious things that they did. Now they use it as a marketing technique where they're like, no, we are really fucking bad. We're awful pieces of shit. We love murder. We are doing murder all the time. We are evil people who like doing bad things. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, Google also dropped its pledge not to use AI for weapons and surveillance. Tech giant says it updated its ethics policy that it will use AI in line with international law and human rights.
Thiel wrote a manifesto called The Education of a Libertarian. In this manifesto, he disavows electoral politics and democracy because he doesn't trust the people with big decisions, and he's come to believe that democracy and freedom are inherently incompatible. Over time, he has talked extensively about finding areas where great men can make choices as they see fit, unbridled by the law. Thiel gave the Trump campaign $1.25 million.
What was he meaning? Kill people or kill their competitive business? I don't know what Palantir is. Palantir is surveillance technology. So yes, he means literally kill people. When he says kill people, he means actually murder, like end organic life.
Trump represents isn't crazy, and it's not going away. He points toward a new Republican Party. He points even beyond the remaking of one party to a new American politics.
And in return, he got an office in the Trump Tower where he had the president's ear and suggested candidates for his administration. Some of his selections didn't make the cut, like Balaji, but some did. Michael Kratsios was put in as the Chief Technology Officer of the United States of America, a position I did not know existed, and Michael Anton was put on the National Security Council. Michael Anton wrote a very concerning essay called The Flight 93 Election, which I have linked below, and it is very enlightening about who Peter Thiel thinks belongs on the National Security Council. And remember Curtis Yarvin, who we were talking about before? He is often referred to as Thiel's in-house philosopher. Thiel has not only invested in a number of Yarvin's businesses, but he keeps Yarvin in his inner circle. Yarvin watched the 2016 election from Peter Thiel's house, where they celebrated with champagne at Thiel's successful investment in the Trump campaign. And while Peter Thiel may not be as explicit in his beliefs as someone like Balaji or Elon or even Mark Andreessen, Yarvin assured Milo Yiannopoulos over email that Peter Thiel was fully enlightened, just plays it very carefully. People in the New Right circles refer to Yarvin as Lord Yarvin, or the Prophet. This isn't someone on the fringe of the movement, this is someone who is respected. Just like Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance is an avid reader and friend of Curtis Yarvin.
There's this guy Curtis Yarvin who's written about some of these things.
Vance not only name checks Curtis Yarvin, but he often uses his languages and repeats his ideas.
You actually popularized the term red pill in the political context, is that right?
Yeah, that's actually true.
Is this concept of red pilling.
Yarvin writes a lot of strange things, but one thing I'm particularly interested in is the blueprint he wrote for Donald Trump. It's called The Butterfly Revolution. It's quite radical and another thing that would be easy to dismiss, but here's a clip of Yarvin talking about why he thinks it would be successful today.
Americans of 2024 are incredibly frivolous, incredibly ironic. It is the most ironic society in history. Like, imagine people trying to cope with a film like The Matrix or Inception in like 1960. Total frame breaking of this kind in some ways is actually easier than the sort of incremental political logic that people have employed in the past. They can sort of more easily imagine, oh man, it's all the Truman Show. In fact, they mostly already believe that it's all the Truman Show. They just don't understand the implications of that.
Something I find concerning is the many ways that the Butterfly Revolution perfectly aligns with Project 2025. Not a huge amount of the tech bros in Silicon Valley are religious, but that doesn't really stop these kinds of groups working together. Definitionally, both of these movements are fascistic. Fascism has never been a fully coherent ideology. That's one of the things that gives fascism its strength, its ability to bring together groups from different movements, all of whom see fascism as a viable mechanism to achieving their own program. And that's why some people say that fascism is always hyphenated. So it's always going to be tech fascism and Christian fascism, but these people can work together, and they do.
One of the things that evangelicals and libertarians should agree on is that the political order is not divinely ordained.
Amen.
Project 2025 has similar stated goals to the tech industry, in particular the dismantling of the administrative state and the return of self-governance to the people. Project 2025 is made up of 4 pillars, and Pillar 4 is the playbook. It is a President's eyes only, will be rolled out upon the president's utterance of "So help me God." We don't know what's in this playbook, but given the alignment of talking points, key figures being involved in both, it wouldn't surprise me if it was similar to the Butterfly Revolution. And I think that's worth investigating. The Butterfly Revolution. Step 1. Campaign on autocracy.
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, no, other than day one.
Yavin says that Donald Trump should run on his autocratic ambition, but he should frame it as destroying an inefficient and unworkable system.
We are in a late Republican period. If we're going to push back against it, we have to get pretty wild and pretty far out there and go in directions that a lot of conservatives right now are uncomfortable with.
We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
Step 2. Purge the bureaucracy. Curtis Yavin refers to this as RAGE.
RAGE stands for retire all government employees.
And he has clearly influenced some very...
This is giving Blue Anon vibes? No. I mean, the success of it will be determined by how competent these dipshits are. But the notion that, like, tech feudalism isn't already happening is silly. It already is. It's not Blue Anon at all. Like, Blue Anon would be like, oh, Russia is having gay sex with Donald Trump. Not incredibly wealthy billionaire tech CEOs are actively aligning with right-wing government with the open interest of undermining every regulatory agency. That is literally happening. Unless you haven't been keeping up with the news for the past, 3 weeks since Donald Trump took control over the government.
Very important people.
I think that what Trump should do, like if I was giving him one piece of advice, fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state.
And we know that Donald Trump would be open to rage because it sounds a lot like Schedule F, an executive order issued by Donald Trump in October of 2020. Schedule F would have essentially stripped protections from civil servants who didn't show enough loyalty to the president of the day, which is why Joe Biden rescinded this order the second he came into office in January of 2021, but Trump has said he plans to reinstate it.
First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively.
But how could you accomplish that so quickly? I mean, you need civil servants. Don't worry, Project 2025 is already on it. Pillar 2 of Project 2025 could be considered MAGA LinkedIn. This platform is designed to pre-stream candidates for their loyalty and streamline the appointments process.
We talk about conservative warriors, but we want people who've been canceled, who've kind of figuratively given blood for the movement.
You can join it right now. Then pair that with Pillar 3, which is an online education platform known as the Presidential Administration Academy, and you have preemptively educated all future employees on what is expected of them from the conservative administration. Step 3. Ignore the courts. According to Yavin, the president should simply state that he believes Madison v. Marbury was decided incorrectly, declare a state of emergency, and that way Supreme Court rulings would be merely advisory.
When the courts stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and say the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it.
But thanks to recent Supreme Court decisions, he may not even need to do that.
The High Court has just issued one of its most consequential rulings in recent decades, a decision that not only affects the 2024 race for president following last week's contentious debate, but also the future of the presidency itself.
Trump v. United States has laid the groundwork to ensure that Donald Trump can ignore the court. Now, the president has absolute immunity for core official acts and presumptive immunity for all other official acts. A distinction that has not been clarified by the court, with only a few examples being provided and absolutely no guardrails to stop the misuse of this decision being put in place.
Today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what the president can do, because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone.
Step 4. Co-opt Congress. Yavin suggests that Trump handpick candidates for every single seat, with the sole criterion being personal loyalty to him. Because you can't have a parliamentary dictatorship if you don't have Congress. And while it seems like a big task, Yavin assures us you only need a couple of $1 billion. I know some people with a few $1 billion. While Peter Thiel may have decided to sit this election cycle out, Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, Brian Armstrong have not.
We got to get the congressman elected, and we got...
Chuck dies. Thank you for the 25 get the subs. I mean, that's arguably true. It's just that good people should have taken that stance towards the Supreme Court decades ago, but they got complacent because of the most liberal Warren Court. But yeah, the president should tell the Supreme Court to go fuck itself way more often.
Elected, because we can take the Senate.
I mean, Trump didn't tell the Supreme Court to go fuck itself. Trump took over the Supreme Court and then used it to give himself more power. So there's still some semblance of institutional control there. He didn't undermine the Supreme Court. He kept it and is using it to his own, using it to suit his own agenda.
Pretty easily. And I think with our little secret, we're going to do really well with the House, right? Our little secret is having a big impact. He and I have a secret. We'll tell you what it is when the race is over.
Step 5. Centralized police and government powers. In this declared state of emergency, Yavin suggests that Trump take direct control over all law enforcement agencies, federalize the National Guard, and effectively create a national police force that absorbs local bodies.
I think that actually the support of the Democratic public is a cipher. I think that actually all you need is command of the police.
This is so that a centralized police state can be created to back the power grab, and I'd say there's no way this could happen if Donald Trump hadn't tried to do it before. We know that he sent the National Guard during the George Floyd protests.
And then I was insistent on having the National Guard go in and do their work. It was like a miracle. Everything stopped.
And we know that he wanted to invoke the Insurrection Act.
If your state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them.
Now, there are, of course, protections within the law, posse comitatus, to stop a president from doing this, but Donald Trump has found a loophole before. I'm sure he'll find one again, especially in a state of emergency where he has absolute immunity for core official acts. Step 6. Shut down elite media and academic institutions. Yavin has explicitly said that you cannot have a New York Times or a Harvard past April. He has a popular theory that true power in America is held by something he calls the cathedral, a term that should alert you, whenever you hear it, to this kind of thing. The cathedral is made up of elite media and academic institutions that, according to Yavin, set the bounds of acceptable political discourse and distort reality to conform with their ideological beliefs.
So the cathedral is essentially performing the functions that a ministry of truth would perform in a classic Orwellian, environment, and it's performing the functions that a religion would in a classic theocracy.
Therefore, existing media and academic institutions need to be dismantled. Vance has been quite vocal about his disdain for academic institutions, despite graduating from Yale, and often repeats Yavin's ideas in his own words.
So much of what we want to do in this movement and in this country, I think, are fundamentally dependent on going through a set of very hostile institutions, specifically the universities, which control the knowledge in our society, which control what we call truth and what we call falsity, that provides research that gives credibility to some of the most ridiculous ideas that exist in our country. And so I think if any of us want to do the things that we want to do for our country and for the people who live in it, we have to honestly and aggressively attack the universities in this country.
Trump has said that if elected, he will reclaim the universities from the Marxist maniacs and lunatics who currently control them. How will he do this?
When I return to the White House, I will fire the radical left accreditors that have allowed our colleges to become dominated by Marxist maniacs and lunatics. For new accreditors who will impose real standards on colleges.
In his Agenda 47, Trump has proposed a law to monitor universities for civil rights violations.
I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment.
That means he could essentially put an institution like Harvard out of business overnight. Elon Musk spends a significant portion of his time trying to undermine existing media in favor of his own platform X. Trump has absolutely no problem getting rid of legacy media. He has repeatedly talked about the government's licensing of broadcast airwaves and about 15 times threatened to revoke licenses of existing stations.
And it's frankly disgusting the way the press is able to write whatever they want to write. And people should look into it.
Step 7. Turn out your people. Get your people out in the street to show their support for you anytime a government agency tries to obstruct you. Yavin says this should be like the post-Soviet revolutions. It should be masses of people. It should be joyful. And we know that Donald Trump has no problem in asking people to physically show their support for him.
We're going to walk down.
It'll be like the dissolution of the USSR. That's right. It's just that I don't think it was positive. What? Can you believe that university has tens of billions of dollars in endowments for siphoning off 60% of research award money for overhead? What a ripoff. Last year, $9 billion to the $35 billion of the National Institute of Health granted for research was used for administrative overhead, what is known as indirect costs. Today, the NIH lowered the maximum indirect cost rate. Research institutions can charge the government up to 15%, above what many major foundations allow, much lower than the 60% that some institutions charge the government today. This change will save more than $4 billion a year effective immediately. Today, the NIH director issued a new directive slashing overhead rates to 15%. I want to provide some context on what that means and why it matters. While the NSF and NIH have indeed a mission to fund specific research and innovations via grant making, they do a lot more than that. Their principal role is to support a scientific ecosystem in the United States that includes everything from education and training to infrastructure and communication. To this end, they support the institutions where grantees work by paying facilities and administrations F&A costs to research institutions such as universities. These costs above and beyond are direct amount of the grant and are essential to fund university infrastructure and personnel. These F&A costs, colloquially known as overhead, are typically north of 50%. At the UW, for example, the overhead rate is 55%. That means that if I get federal grants for $1 million of direct research funding, the university receives an additional $550,000 to cover operating expenses and such. Right. Pentagon is doubling the number of media outlets losing their physical workspaces. New York Times is out, Washington Post is out, NBC is out, CNN, Politico, The Hill, The War Zone, NPR. In is the New York Post, Washington Examiner, OAN, Newsmax, Huffington Post, The Free Press, The Daily Caller, and Breitbart. State propaganda, baby. Now, ironically enough, these guys also do pro-State Department propaganda, but just not enough of it. Not enough of it for J.D. Pondon. Barry Weiss's The Free Press and Tucker Carlson's The Daily Caller. Amazing. Well, maybe this level of like access removal will force the hand of a lot of these mainstream institutions into actually doing adversarial journalism. They do pro-State Department propaganda, but they don't do pro-Trump propaganda. So they're gone. Or maybe they'll just capitulate further, who knows, and beg on their hands and knees for a seat at the table so they can get that sweet access once again. Other schools may have an even higher overhead rate. Harvard is around 69%. This new order slashes that percentage to a maximum of 15%. This means cutting one of the most important sources of university funding nationwide by 75% or more. The policy does not affect funding going forward. All existing NIH grants will have their indirect rates cut by 15% as of today, the date of issuance. For a large university, this creates a sudden and catastrophic shortfall of hundreds of millions of dollars against already budgeted funds. This order did not come out of nowhere. It was a core component of Lindsey Burke's Department of Education chapter in Project 2025 report. Private foundations typically pay 10 to 15% overhead rates, and the logic of this comparison is made explicitly in today's supplemental guidance from the NIH. It is difficult to overstate what a catastrophe this will be for the U.S. research and education systems, particularly in biomedical fields. It is deliberate and wanton devastation entirely out of scale with any concern about DI activities on campuses. The goal is to destroy U.S. universities. Indirect rates are not determined by the NIH, says Jeremy Berg. Instead, they are the product of elaborate negotiations between each institution and the cognizant federal agency. I mean, NIH funding, NIH grants is one of the only things that has kept America being somewhat dominant in the field of novel chemical compound discovery. Even though we do spend a lot more money and create a lot less or innovate a lot less per capita in comparison to other European nations. Not entirely sure about China, but a lot of Trump's initiatives always feel like genuinely hurting America, like more than anything else.
To the Capitol, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength.
Once this butterfly revolution has taken place and the presidency looks more like a CEO or a king, the court of tech geniuses will have a much more realistic shot at getting what they want. One thing I can tell you about these Silicon Valley tech bros is that they are long-term thinkers. They are planning for years and years and years into the future. In case you needed more evidence that Silicon Valley and Project 2025 are in bed together, there is this strange tech conference called Reboot. And in September, at the last Reboot conference, which is all about creating a new reality, there was a special secret guest speaker. That secret guest speaker ended up being Kevin Roberts, who gave a speech titled Tech and the American Republic. The point of trying to put Vance in the VP position wasn't just to have him one heartbeat away from an old and ailing president. It was to introduce him to the world as the new blueprint of the Republican Party, to provide a strong option for a post-MAGA Republican Party, a party that will co-opt the government to destroy the country in order to allow self-described great men to install themselves as mini kings.
Do you think that America will be balkanized soon? No, I don't think so. I think the power of the state is, especially if you can take it over this way, is far too valuable. Thank you, Kaya, for reacting to my video. Yeah, that was a great video. It was not libbed up. I don't like this demonization of Silicon Valley. There are many common folks like me working for these billionaires in the tech sector, and this is nothing like reality down here. Good luck, chatter.